right? And this Shabbat is going to be Yutet Kislev. It's the holiday when the first Rebbe of Chabad was released from prison. And the reason he was imprisoned was because his ideas of Chassidut uh, made an earthquake. It turned the whole Jewish world over. More exactly, it turned it inside out. It took all the Judaism and put it in God's terms. In other words, how God looks at the world. And it had such ideas as God reacts to everything that we do, and that God creates the entire world, and that every Jew is precious, the Son of God, and even the biggest sinners. And on the other hand, the holiest of holiest Jews, they have to correct themselves and get closer to God, and what's called doing tshuva, and closer. These ideas and many more, especially about how we should get emotional about God, etc. These really arouse the ire of a lot of religious Jews, that they even call themselves the Misnagdim, the opposers. And they forged papers and brought false evidence and testified against the first Rebbe of Chabad and the whole Chabad movement, really, to high officials in the Tsarist government, to the level of the Tsar himself. And I mean, if Jews are testifying against religious Jews against religious Jews, so it must be that what they're saying is true. I mean, giving your own brother over, you must have pretty good reason to do so. So they put the Rebbe into prison, and the Rebbe was in prison for 53 days, and in that time, he little by little they realized that he was a really holy person. So I want to tell 3 stories that indicate this. First one is that on the way to being imprisoned, as it was a Shabbat was approaching. So the Rebbe told the driver of the coach to stop because it was Shabbat, to keep Shabbat. So he said he's not going to do it. So the axle broke. It broke twice, whatever. And then he finally fixed it, and one of the horses died. So the driver realized that the Alter Rebbe was somehow or other, he was in control. Alter Rebbe is the first Rebbe. It's called the Old Rebbe. Reb Shneur Zalman was his name. He wrote the Tanya. He wrote the Tanya before he was in prison. That was one of the reasons he was in prison, because of the ideas in this book, the Tanya. So the Rebbe said you can just pull over to the side of the road, and they kept Shabbos there on the side of the road in this place called Kfar. It was called Kfar Piana. They know where the place is today. Story number one. Story number two. When the Rebbe was put into prison, so they already sensed that there was something going on over here, that he was a very unusual person. And they kept him in a room. There was no access to the outside world, no window to the outside. And there was only a window into the hall. And the light was always on in the hall. And they would they changed the times when they would bring him his food. He had a way that he got kosher food from from a chassid that lived nearby anyway, but they would change the times that in order to confuse him, that he wouldn't know when it was day and night. Once they came in, they found him in his tefillin praying, and the guard said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm praying. It's in the morning prayer." He said, "What is the morning? It's in the middle of the night." He said, "No, it's exactly 5:45." He told him exactly the time in the morning. So the guard said, "How do you know that?" So he said, "Well, God creates the world all the time, constantly, but he changes it. There's certain things that change constantly, and that one of them is time." And in the nighttime, God creates the world from the 4 permutations of his name that begins with Aleph, Daled, Nun, Yud, and with the 12 permutations from these 4 letters. And that's in the nighttime. In the daytime, there's the 12 permutations from the name Yud-Ke, Vav-Ke, another name of God. And I see these permutations, so I know what time it is. And he was right. So this made a tremendous impression on him. There's more stories. I told you a story yesterday also about Ayeka. But here's a story that's very unusual. When the Rebbe was in prison, so there came to visit him the Maggid of Mezrich and the Baal Shem Tov, who they had passed away long before, but they came to visit him in their bodies. Because when the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe was shown the place where they said that the Rebbe was kept, they said it could have been because it was big enough for 3 people. It was big enough for 3 people. Nowadays, you can also go and visit the prison where he was kept, but it's very doubtful it's the same room because the rooms are much bigger. At least that's, and anyway, then it was big enough for 3 people. And the Rebbe asked the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid ben Mezrich. The Baal Shem Tov he began the Chassidic movement. The Maggid ben Mezrich was his pupil. And the first Rebbe of Chabad, he was the pupil of the Maggid of Mezrich. And so they came to visit him in his prison cell. And he asked them why he was there. On what reason was he imprisoned? So they said, because you're spreading the ideas of Chassidut in, in too much quantity. Too much. You're spreading it out. So he said, well, maybe I should stop. Maybe if that's the reason I'm here, so maybe that I'm put in prison, it's a sign that God is not pleased with what I'm doing, so maybe I should stop. And they said, no, now that you've started, don't stop. You have to do it. You have to spread out. And then they left. And that's an amazing story in itself. But the Lubavitcher Rebbe, he points out, this is our Rebbe today. This is a picture of our Rebbe. So he points out that this is exactly the opposite of another story that's told about the first Rebbe of Chabad. The story is that when he was a pupil of the Maggid of Mezrich, the Maggid of Mezrich, his name was Dovber. When he was a pupil, once he was walking down the streets, and there was a page of Chassidut in the gutter. In the gutter. There's different versions of the story, but this is the way I heard the story. So he was walking down the street with the Maggid of Mezrich and Rabbi Pinchas of Koritz, and they saw a page of this Chassidut in the gutter. Now, they were printing out these ideas of Chassidut, not in such a great amount that the Rebbe did, but they were printing it out. And this Rabbi Pinchas, of course, was very opposed. He was very opposed. He said the ideas of Chassidut, it's Kabbalah, it's only for the select few, you can't spread it out to others. As they were walking on the street and they saw this page of Chassidut laying in the gutter and the street, in the dirt. So he said, see, this is what comes of your of your idea that we should spread ideas of Chassidut. The Holy Torah is laying in the gutter because of you. You printed ideas of the Torah and you give it to people that don't appreciate it, can't value it. And it's laying in the gutter. So you see that you're wrong. So immediately the Alter Rebbe, who at that time was a young man, he was just in his 20s, early 20s. So he said, I want to tell you a mashal. Once there was a king, and the king had a precious son, and the son got sick. And he got sicker and sicker, and they brought doctors and professors and experts, and nothing helped. Until finally one expert came, and he said, Your Majesty, the king, I know what the disease is, and I know what the solution is, but I don't think you're going to want to do it. The king said, I'll do anything to save my son. So he said, okay, you see that crown, that diamond in the crown, in your crown? The king said, yes, of course, that's the pride of my kingdom, the pride of my rulership. And nobody's got a diamond like this. So, well, you got to take that diamond, crush it up, and then put it in water and give your son to drink. And if he drinks, then that'll save him. But you got a big problem. First of all, the diamonds are very precious. If you crush it up, it's going to be lost. Number two is that your son is in pretty bad shape, and it's a doubt if any is going to go into his mouth at all. And even if it does go into his mouth, it could be that he'll spit it out. He won't be able to swallow it. So he has two obstacles: his lips and his throat. But if a little drop of it does go in, he'll be saved. So the king said, go for it, 100%. So this wise man, he had the special way. You know how to do it. A diamond, you can't just crush up diamonds. and he knew how to crush up the diamond, and he crushed it, put it into water, and sure enough, they tried to give the son to drink, tried to open up his lips, and almost none of it went in. It all spilled out. And that little bit that did go in, as he spit out. But they kept trying until one little tiny, minuscule drop went, he swallowed, and he became saved. He saved his king's son. So that is what's happening here. The Jewish people are the king's son. They're very, very sick. The king is God. And the Jewish people are the sons of God. And they're really in bad shape, really terrible shape. The only thing that's going to save them is the diamond from the king's crown. The king's crown is the Torah, and the diamond are the secrets of the Torah. And we have to grind this up, and give it to your son. Of course, unlike the metaphor, once you crush up the diamond, it still exists. I mean, the secrets are still here. And then when in our story, he did. But in any case, so you have to crush up the diamond. And the idea here is the risk that he's taking. The king is taking the risk. So you have to crush up the diamond, and that's what you did. You crushed up the secrets of the Torah, and only in the way that only Chassidut can do. The Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid, they're the experts, and we're pouring it into the mouth of the Jewish child, which is the Jewish people, and a lot of it spills out. That's what you see here on the ground. But if a little bit goes in, it'll save the Jewish people. And so here, what the Rebbe made all sorts of tricks and mental things and metaphors and comparisons that you should never stop teaching Chassidut. Never stop teaching Chassidut. That's what, like Reb Pinchas of Koretz, that's what he wanted to do. It's wrong. You have to teach Chassidut. No matter what, you have to teach Chassidut, even if it falls on the ground, even if it gets defiled. That's this story. But the first story I just told, that the first Rebbe of Chabad said, well, maybe if I'm teaching Chassidut, I got put into jail, maybe I should stop. The first story said you should never stop. And here he said then maybe I should stop. So the Rebbe said it's no contradiction. The first is talking about saving the Jewish people. Saving the Jewish people, even a little drop is okay. You don't have to. But here we're talking about bringing Mashiach. In order to bring Mashiach, is you have to, not just a little drop, you have to do it, you have to spread the ideas of Chassidut. It's called Beshufi, in tremendous quantity, spread it out. That's why the Maggid of Mezrich said that the reason you're sitting here is because you're spreading out too much the Chassidut. And therefore he said, well, maybe I should stop spreading out Chassidut so much, not to stop it totally. And he said, no, you shouldn't. You should even continue and do it even more. And that's the idea of Chassidut will bring the Mashiach. That's Yutet Kislev is the holiday that prepares us for, and God willing, we will actually see the Rebbe Lubavitch, and everyone will see Malkeinu, the king of the Jewish people, Melech HaMashiach, that we've all been waiting for thousands of years, will be here to wake the Jewish people up, bring them back to life, and build the third temple, and all the Jews will be together in Israel with a true leader, Mashiach, now.